V and Kaz, two ladies with 20 years of experience in personal development. These interesting discussions relate to everyday life and how to sync our thinking.
So success isn't always what it seems. For example, if we see someone driving a fancy car, we tend to look at them and think, wow, they're so successful, they've got it all together. And yes, they are successful. If their goal was to drive that fancy car, then they have achieved success in that goal or by achieving that goal. But we don't know what's happening with the rest of their lives and how successful they are in all the other areas of their lives, their health, their relationships, their work, etc., etc., etc. There very possibly are areas that are lacking.
Absolutely. And I think this is so important when we're looking at success, because it really is a case of addressing every area of our lives. And when we look at self-mastery, for example, it comes down to those organizational skills and saying, I need to find a way to address every area of my life and make sure that obviously I'm not going to aim to have 100% success in every area, because that would be totally idealistic and ridiculous, but to say I'm taking steps at least in every area of my life towards achieving fulfillment in that particular area. And this is really what empowerment is all about. When we think about empowerment and self-mastery, we realize that we should be aiming to give ourselves the best possible quality of life and the best possible life experience. And it's different for everybody. It's personal, because what my aim would be, for example, with regard to exercise won't be the same as yours. And that's fine. So it's very personal for each person, for each individual.
Absolutely. I think an analogy that I like to use it for that is, if you think of a hotel, if you think of a little hotel in a town, and someone's driving through and they go into this hotel, and as you step in, the first thing you see is the reception. And that is what we want the world to see. And you see the reception, and receptions in hotels look different, but they all look nice, and they usually have flowers. Sometimes they're fresh, sometimes they're false, but they want to look good, because that is what represents the hotel. But we don't always know what the rooms behind are like. And then sometimes we'd go in and we'll be taken to our room and we look, and maybe the sheets aren't as clean as we would like, or there might be a broken chair, or the hairdryer is not working, or there's a mirror that's missing, or the water in the shower is not hot, or there's a funny smell, etc. So what we saw when we walked in doesn't always carry through to the rooms behind the hotel, in the hotel. And I think if we think of ourselves as a hotel, that works as a really good analogy. What people see of us when they look at us, that would be our reception area. So that's what we present to the world. That's what we want the world to see. But then if we think of every aspect in our lives as a different room in our hotel, which is us, and every single relationship as a separate room in that hotel, we need to look at that. Now, if you think of a hotel manager, when they have a hotel, they will have the rooms that are beautiful. They'll have the beautiful honeymoon suite, or the one with a lovely view, and the one that has the lovely decor and the curtains. But then they will have the one that, like I say, the curtains might be torn, or the shower's not working properly, or the toilet's clogged and they need to fix that. And the hotel manager doesn't just lock the door on that and walk away. And if we look at that with our lives, it's the same thing. You know, we have the areas in our lives that are going really well. And that would be our honeymoon suite, or our hotel with the room with the beautiful view, or the lovely curtains, etc. That, yes, it's going really well. And that can be our exercise, our work, our careers, our family, our friends, whatever we're looking at, different aspects and areas in our lives. And that's wonderful. But then we do also have the areas that maybe aren't going so well. So when we think of the hotel rooms that have the problem, the torn curtains, or the blocked toilets, or there's no hot water, or the bed's broken, those are the areas in our lives that are not going so well, where we're not happy with the results we're achieving, where we're not feeling very successful. And the temptation there is to lock the door and forget that it's there and just go and focus on the beautiful honeymoon suite and say, hey, everybody, look at this wonderful honeymoon suite I've got in my hotel. But a good hotel manager can't do that. A good hotel manager has to go to the room that's not working and say, well, I need to get a plumber in to come and unclog that toilet or fix the hot water, or I need to replace that bed, or find the cause of that funny smell, or whatever it is that I need to do. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not that easy. And the temptation is to focus on just the good areas. But if we're not focusing on the areas that need attention, then are we being, we need, that balance is very important. We need to look at that balance. And naturally, we do tend to focus on what's going well. But success comes from looking at all areas in our lives, like we said.
So a successful hotel manager would be managing every room in the hotel and realizing as well that what isn't addressed in one room could eventually become a problem. So if you've got an insect infestation in one room and you lock it up and forget about it, eventually those will move into other rooms and you'll have an insect infestation in every room. And I think that's what happens in our lives as well. We can't pretend that life is perfect because there are certain areas that are really good. And I think what we often do is we tend to spend a lot of time in those areas. So, if, for example, work is amazing, then I will spend a lot of time in work mode. And if my relationship at home isn't good, I'll avoid going home. Or if I love gym and I'm really doing well with my exercise routine, I'll go to gym often. But I will avoid work if work isn't good. So we spend a lot of time in the areas that are good, and then we pat ourselves on the back and say, I'm accomplishing a lot, which we are in those areas. But we tend to forget about the areas that aren't so great and hope that they'll just go away a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to success and self-mastery, and what we really need to think about then is it's a new approach really to balance, isn't it? Because it's all about creating balance in our lives. And balance isn't just about saying, well, I have my relaxation time and my fun time and my work time. It's a lot more than that. It's about, as we said, having those organizational skills to be able to address every area of our lives, and even those that aren't too good, and to know that we aren't going to have 100% success in every area at every moment, but that we have an action plan in place. So those that aren't working well, we are addressing them, we're working at them, we know that ultimately we will achieve a goal. And when we look at, for example, let's say an area like finance, managing our finances, the action might take a period of time. If we're in a lot of debt, for example, it might be a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. But we know that that room is under renovation. We are working at it. We are achieving the short-term goals towards ultimately getting to that long-term end result. And that's really what it's all about. So to be successful, we shouldn't fool ourselves, I think, first of all, into pretending everything's great because some areas are good, and we shouldn't neglect those that need attention or just ignore the areas that aren't working well.
Absolutely. It's a question of both. So a good hotel manager has the beautiful honeymoon suite that they maintain, they keep it, and they look at it and they say, I want to maintain that as the beautiful honeymoon suite. So I don't want that to become dilapidated and run down. So I keep that good, but I'm also looking at the rooms that need attention. Absolutely. And I'm getting my plumbers and my electricians and exterminators and whatever I need to do to maintain it. And it's the same with the aspects in our lives and with our relationships.
Yes.
So the ones that are going well, we want to keep going well. We don't want to neglect those and say they're going well, I'm just going to ignore them.
That's right.
But we also need to address the ones that aren't going well and say, what do I need to do? And I think something that we need to look at as well is, we grow up with this sort of external organization. So from when we are small, we have somebody giving us the routine and what to do. It is bath time, it is bedtime. You eat now, you change now, you go, and you go to school now, and you finish now, and you have extramurals, and you do your homework now, and then you study, and you have your timetable for what subjects to go to, and when you're writing tests and when you're writing exams, and then you have your study timetable, and then you go to university and you have your timetable there, and then you go and you get a job, and again you have deadlines and meetings, and things are set for us. And there's a part of us that actually continues to want that. We want someone to come in and say, this is what you need to do. So we want someone to come in and manage our hotel and say, you need to check this room, and you need to do this, and you need to do that, and what's happening with, and we actually need to realize that there isn't, that we need to take charge of that it's our responsibility to take charge of our hotel and manage it effectively, because that is when we are heading towards success. That is when we become successful.
That's right. That's what empowerment is. And it comes back then to that bridge we spoke about before, the bridge of belonging, which is our first bridge of development, and realizing that we need to create a structure for ourselves that addresses all areas of our lives. That is what self-mastery is. It's saying, I know that I need to address all of those areas. How do I go about it? Sometimes I obviously will need external support and assistance and expertise, whatever the case may be, but I am addressing those. I'm not just closing the door and pretending they don't exist. And organizing my life in such a way as to make sure that everything is being addressed. Not waiting for someone to come and say, this is how you sort it out. And I think also with regard to things like self-discipline there, because people often say, well, what is self-discipline? And how do I have that self-discipline? And discipline, first of all, is such it's a word that has such a negative connotation, because I think from a young age, we see discipline as punishment, so self-discipline is also seen as a form of punishment. It's like, oh, I'm going to put myself through boot camp now, kind of thing, because we've got to change patterns. So if, for example, my eating plan isn't what it should be, and I want to change that, it's going to take self-discipline to change it. And self-discipline, often people have asked me and said, well, what is self-discipline? And I say, well, if you look at the bridge of belonging and self-awareness, self-discipline is really self-love, because it's all about, it's not negative. We should see it in a positive light, because it's saying, I'm taking charge, I'm taking responsibility to alter patterns, to take actions that ultimately will take me to a place where I reap the reward. So things that I do will have benefit for me. So it's about self-love. If I neglect certain areas of my life and I don't take those actions, I am the only one who's going to suffer. So that really is what self-discipline is all about.
Absolutely, it is. And yeah, that self-appreciation, self-love, like you say, looking out for myself. And I think a big part of that as well is focusing. It's when we are addressing an area in our hotel, when we are looking at the rooms, going back to the hotel manager, a good hotel manager can't go and say, oh, there's a problem in this room, but while they're looking at the problem, they're thinking about the lovely view from the honeymoon suite, and that they should leave a goodie basket for the new arrivals, because then they're not going to be aware of the problem that's there.
That's right.
And they're not going to be able to fix it. And it happens with every area in our lives. Whatever we are doing, we need to focus on achieving that goal in that moment. So if I say, I need some downtime, I need to relax, I'm going to go for a walk on the beach or in the woods or in my garden or somewhere and try and have some calm downtime with nature. If I then go and I take my earphones and I have my phone and I'm on a call with my office, or I listen to minutes from a meeting or a report from somebody, or I'm listening and I'm thinking about that, I'm not appreciating where I am at that moment. So then am I getting the benefit of actually being there? I'm not noticing what's around me. So I'm saying, yes, I'm going for a walk. Yes, I'm in that situation at that moment, but I'm not benefiting from it.
That's right.
So I need to actually focus on what I'm doing at that moment to reap the benefits. And there are some things we can combine. But there are some things, I mean, you can't be listening to a serious conference call while you're walking through nature, because where's your focus going to be?
That's right.
You
And
can't
you
appreciate
can,
both.
but that's right. But what is your aim? If your aim in walking through nature is to unwind, you aren't going to achieve that goal. I think it applies, you know, even if we look at our relationships, and what you're saying is so true, the action that we are taking in the specific area. So if we see the areas of our lives as rooms of the hotel, and I say, well, the one area of my life, for example, is my relationship with my teenage child. And hypothetically speaking, let's say there isn't good communication between the parent and the child, and they want to improve the communication. And they say, well, what I'm going to do is allocate time every day, 45 minutes, to spend with my teenager so that we can bond and, you know, improve our communication. But then during that allocated time, I'm taking business calls and I'm checking messages on my phone, and the child is sitting watching something on the phone, and, you know, or we're watching a show on TV, whatever the case may be, and then the 45 minutes is up. The actions that we are taking are not conducive to achieving the goals that I had put into place for that particular area of my life. So I think we often don't take the actions that are required in that area. Sometimes we shy away because it just seems to be too overwhelming, and it's like, I can't go there. But that's really what the self-discipline involves, and the self-love and the responsibility. And when we start to look at all those areas and say, I'm addressing all the areas good and bad, and sometimes it's tough to go into some of those rooms that we'd rather just padlock and not go near. But when we address them, and we know that we're addressing them, and we know there are action plans in place, we have more of a sense of peace as well. And that ultimately, that balance is what leads us towards overall success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the challenge.
Thanks, Cara. So great. Hey, chat soon.
Click like, share, and subscribe to grow this valuable channel.